Hi, my name's Brad.rau, and in this video we are going to be talking about switching chords. So, most of us, by now, this is for someone who, you're starting out on guitar, you've learned some chords, but you're having trouble getting to playing them like this. Maybe this is where you are, so you're going, okay, G to C. If this is where you are in guitar, this video is for you, and we're gonna talk about all of the things that you can do to get your chord switching to sound like this. So we're going to talk about that. Okay, so there's a quite a number of things that you can do, and we're going to cover all of them, and some of them are almost opposite of each other. The first one that I want to talk about, which is actually in some way opposed to all of the other techniques, is to just go slower. If it takes you this long to switch from a chord, just to get a musical flow, just go slower. It's going to be better to do that than to try to act like you can get there before you can. Okay, so that's one thing. A lot of people, when they first learn to make a chord, they put the one finger down at a time. And when you teach a student to learn to make a chord, they're going to put their fingers down one at a time. Everyone always does that. That's how would you? When I explain a chord, I do that. Most teachers, But the reality of it is that you have to actually put all of your fingers down at once. Now, if I just told you to do that, that's not something that most people can naturally just jump into. So here's a couple hints. Now, learn how to make the chord in different orders. So if you always put down most people will I'll make it like this and I'll do this and that. Okay, you put it down first. But try this. I could put my first finger down, then my second, and then my third. I could put my second finger down, my first finger down, then my third finger. Or I could put my second finger, my third finger, and my first. There's a lot of different orders that I could put my fingers down, and getting good at all of them. And I'm looking for two different types of data. One of them is what's the best one for me to do. And for the moment, that will be the one that I'm using. And then the other one is what's the worst one that I'm doing, and maybe I can get better. Another thing that you can do is trying to just make two notes at once. Can I put these two down at once? Can I put these two down at once? Can I put those two down at once? And working towards, or how long does it take me just to get those two? How long does it take me just to get those two? How long does it take me just to get these two? And doing those combinations. And if you can get those faster, it's going to help you to be able to get to the point where you're going to be able to get them all down at once. Another technique that I do for getting chords all down at once is first I'm gonna play. Now the one thing that I'm gonna do too, a lot of people skip this, but I want to emphasize this: the strumming. Right as I push down, I'm going to strum at the same time. And this is important because this is a habit that you need to form in your brain. Your right and left hand have to coordinate together. So when you can have push down and strum, pushing down the chord and strumming should be the same thing to you. And you want to just form that habit right now that you want to push down. And you don't want to waste energy. Sometimes I'll have a student make a chord and I'll be making comments. They'll be holding the chord for 5 minutes and you're going to tire your hand out. You don't need to do that. You want to conserve your energy. So if you're not making, take the chord off and make it when you need to. So what I'm going to do now is I'm making the chord, but I'm going to pick it. This is a C chord. I'm going to pick it up just so that I'm muting the note. So I have my fingers on the right strings, but I'm muting the notes. The open strings are hopefully ringing. If they're not, don't worry about it. And then I'm going to just push, as I push, strum, and then I'm going to relax. I'm going to strum, and I'm going to relax. And I'm going to get the sensation of going from touching the strings and not pushing to pushing. And then back to touching the strings and not pushing into pushing. So you're going to get, this is a transition. It's not a very big transition. It's not very hard. But you want to get very comfortable at this. This is the last step of making the chord. And if you can get comfortable with that, you're reducing the finish line step of making the chord. Okay, so what you do when you get a little bit comfortable with this, now I'm going to just like lighten up so my fingers are still touching the strings, but just very lightly, like a light breeze, barely touching, almost in the right positions, maybe not quite. And then I'm going to go from there to push down. And when I do that, I'm going to strum. So I'm going from like almost not touching to strum, almost not touching to strum. Okay, and you're going to get good at that, and that's taking the final step and backing up a little bit more. Now what you're going to do is I want you to actually take your fingers off the strings, but keep the C chord shape. Keep everything where it is, but just don't, just like, I'm not touching the strings, like here's how far, like I'm not touching the strings, but I'm still like almost barely, I'm like a millimeter, it's like, you know, I can just, like, if I move it tiniest bit, there it is, okay, I'm not there. So I still really have a sense of where the string is, even though I'm not officially touching it. I'm, like, on the verge of touching it. So I'm going to go from there, push down and strum. I'm going to go from there, push down and strum. And you want to get good at that. Now I want you to leave the strings a little bit more, and I think you can kind of see what you're going to slowly get further away, okay? And then you're going to come. Now, the final, and then slowly through time, you're going to be able to get further and further away, and that's going to get better. And you want to do this, of course, with a couple different chords. You might actually find that you don't have to do this with every chord. If you do it with 2 or 3 chords, you might not need to do it with the other one. So remember that when you're practicing too. Don't think that this is something you have to do with every chord, but get it when you can get to the point where you can do a couple chords this way. You'll be able. There's a very good chance that you'll have the other ones, and maybe not with E minor. You know, C and G are usually kind of more difficult. Maybe a D or A. E minor only has 2 notes, so you're not really going to get a lot of practice switching if you're going to pick an easy chord to develop this, because these are just what these techniques are, is a gradual way to do this. So the final product is when you can take your hand from here and go right from C, and here right to G. You can hammer on a chord. So when you can do this, you're done this exercise. You don't even have to be this good to really play guitar, but just to give you an idea. So this is one way to just very slowly develop getting the chord at the same time. So now we're going to talk about the switching, actually having the chord. So I'm going to take a G to a C. Okay, when am I going to switch? Okay, because that's something that now this is not an ideal situation. This isn't necessarily what a professional would do, but for getting started, I'm going to say that you would want to switch on the and, on the upbeat, on the beat in between. So I'm going to 1, 2, 3, 4, switch. 1, 2, 3, 4, switch. 1. A lot of people have problems when they're playing guitar because they begin to move their hands when they need to get there. Now, if you have a doctor appointment at 5 o'clock, you don't leave your house at 5 o'clock. You leave your house before 5 o'clock so that you can get there at 5 o'clock. And the same thing with guitar. If you want to make a chord, you have to leave early to get there on time. Now, a trained guitar player will learn how to reduce that amount of time, and that's for another video altogether. If you're probably not if you're 8 minutes, you wouldn't even make it 8 minutes into this video if you were on that level probably. So 1, 2, 3, 4, switch. 1, 2, 3, 4, switch. Switch. You want to timing the switch so that you leave ahead of time. You're never going to get the chord switching in time unless you do that. And if you do that, you will get it. So those are some of the big important things. Now I talked about in one of my other videos adding an 8th note on beat 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1. So what you would do then is you have to think, what's half of that? We would call that a 16th note. 1, 2, 3, 4, and switch. Switch. 2 and 3 and 4 and switch. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and switch. 1. And that's actually also a technique to increase your legato. The more that you can subdivide and switch at the last moment, the better you'll sound. But I think for someone watching this video, you want to just leave on the in-between, and that's my advice. And when you can get that, you can try to tighten that up. It will always take time to switch, by the way. That's the Xenu's paradox. But at least you can start at a first halfway, which will give you something. And of course you can, there are infinitely closer halfways, and very trained musicians have went very further with that. But at least getting off to that start. And if you are watching this video, maybe you're watching this for a teacher, consider that as how legato can you be. Playing fast notes at the end right before you switch is going to increase your legato when you. That's one of the things I learned that from the Fisk. So those are some tips for switching. I'm going to give you one more. And I probably should have talked about this at first. Normally I talk about this at first. Common fingers. So, for example, in E minor, going to a G has the first finger as a common finger. You don't have to move that chord. Okay? You don't have to move that finger. Likewise, a C major to A minor, which happens so much, you have two common fingers. To go from C major to A minor, you only have to move your third finger from the second fret of the third string to the third fret of the fifth string. So that's another thing, is if you are switching between two chords, is there a common finger between them. There's also a thing called a guide finger, usually used more in advanced guitar, but I think it'll happen even for someone getting started. This third finger is on the second fret, and it's going to move up to the third fret. So I don't actually pick up the third finger, and even though it's not on the same fret, it's still on the same string, and I have that constant stability third finger thing going on. And it can create a legato where otherwise my fingers would have to take more time. That sounds more legato, even though actually I'm cheating quite a bit earlier than I would normally, which can be an effect in and of itself too, to bring out a melodic note. So I hope you got a lot out of that, and I hope that you're going to be able to make your chord switches and use some of these techniques and really get your chord switching faster so that you can really jam out and switch some chords.